we will be publishing those recordings onto our website early next year. I'll let everyone know when they're available if you do need to go back and use it as a bit of a revision tool. I know I've used that as a learning tool on many different software packages that I've learned. I find it very powerful. All right, so today it's really an admin process that we're going to go through with documents. So you really need admin rights, and you should be able to see this admin button on the process menu. If you're not able to see the admin button, it means you don't have administration rights. So this whole training session won't make a real lot of sense to you. So it's really just for the administrators and how to really affect what's happening with the document after it's been created and moving them around, and also we'll look at a little bit of the diary and the calendar and how all the emails work in the background as well. Depends on how the time goes for that one. Alright, so we're going to be looking at the admin functions. Pretty straightforward. We start with clicking on the admin, and this then brings up the process menu. Now this process menu I call the doing or the action menu, as opposed to if we were looking at the lower process menu. That's more for the, I suppose, the viewing of what's been happening with the documents, and that's this one below, and we will look at that a little bit later on. But to start with, we're going to be looking at this process menu, and I clicked on the admin button, and the process menu is like layers. It's one layer upon another, and it just brings up another aspect of the process menu. I can click on the back button, and it goes back to what we originally saw of the process menu. Last week we clicked on review, and that opened up all these other choices that we intuitively follow through. I also pointed out, just as a reminder as well, by turning on the workflow, and that was just right-clicking on any record, clicking on the workflow, and then clicking on the record button. That highlights the workflow down the left-hand side, and you can see on any particular document where that particular document is on the actual workflow at any one time. So I find that quite handy as well. And just to get rid of that screen, to go back to the library, I usually just click on the function menu, and that refreshes the screen and brings back up the libraries that we're looking at. Now, always remembering, okay, what module am I in? The knowledge module. Number 2 is the document function menu, and we're going to be looking at the corporate documents today, and then on to policies, and then on to the admin function. So the first one we're going to look at, the master, you probably saw me click on that before. That's exactly the same as the doc info on another part of the process menu. So it just basically saves you from having to go backwards and forwards by clicking on the master. The next one is we're going to be looking at is renaming. Now, this renames the record reference, not the actual name of the document. If you wanted to change the name of, the name of the record, we can go into the master or doc info as I highlighted, and click on this document title and change the name there. That's not what we're looking at today. We're actually looking at this document reference, or it's also called a record reference, and that's this grayed out field up here that we're going to be able to change. Alright, so we want to click on that record button beside the name of the record, and then click on rename. So at the moment it brings up what number it is here. It's 000. Something to keep in mind, I'll just go back to the list of records again. Something to keep in mind is when you're going to be renaming it, it's worthwhile having a look down and just seeing what numbers are taken and what aren't. You can go potluck and just put the name in if you like and see if it's available. But down here up to 904, and we've got 2 pages here, 906, 907, 909. So I might go for 910 just to make sure that that's available for me. Alright, and I'm going to change this introduction document, or this introduction record. Clicking on admin. Once again, I'm in knowledge, I'm in documents, I'm in the policies, and we've found the record that we want to change. I click on the admin, and I click on rename, and we type in the similar the prefix of the library, which is POL dash, and 910 is what we decided to call it, and then we click on OK. Seems to be taking a little bit longer than normal. Okay, and then we click on done. Okay, and here we go. We're already on page 2 of 2, and there's POL 910. If for whatever reason, I made a mistake, I didn't want to call it that, it's quite simple, and you just reverse the whole process and going back in and typing it back in. If I remember what it was 000. We can go back to what we just called it and go through the same process again. This gets quite handy if you're just moving documents around and some documents have a bit more of a higher priority maybe, and you want to put them at a different level. Then it's what you can move those numbers around, and there it is, POL 000. Now the next one we're going to be looking at is moving a record and a document from one library to another. So which one will we move them to? We'll move them to, say, the Standing Orders library. We click on the Standing Orders library and just see, okay, we don't have anything in that. We just check if there's anything in there and what number might you want to be up to. So back to the policy, and we'll move that same document there. So we click on Move, and we look for the library we want to go to, and that's the Standing Orders library. Here it is down here, and we click on that. And if you're unsure of what the prefix is, what you want to name it, that's what's in brackets there. So it's STO, and we know there wasn't one in there, so we can go 001. What that's doing is moving it from this policy library and 000 to renaming it and moving it at the same time to this. Now you don't have to change the prefix if you don't want to. You can call it POL, whatever. You can call it anything you like, but it just keeps that naming convention the same as most of the other, or really all the other documents in that library. And we click on OK.
Excuse me, Peter, Lorraine here. What version of Fast Tracker are we looking at here?
What version is it? That's a good question. I'll just check that after we've finished that processing. We click on the help button here, and that brings up this window, and the build number is 2.3.01. So you should be able to find that on yours by just clicking on that help button. Or that question mark button, I should say. Yep.
It's a little bit different to mine.
Okay. All right, just talked to the technical guys. I'm not too sure where they're at with that rollout. We started, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, on rolling that new update. So just send an email in and see where you're at with that. I'm not too sure what's happening with your instance. Okay. So we've moved this particular record and document from the Policies library into the Standing Orders library and renamed it at the same time. That's where it sits. Just to check, back in the Policies library, there it's moved from there. It's page 1 of 2. All right. The content we don't use a real lot. It has a, once again, it's layer upon layers in this process menu. And this is more for a lot more technical processing. It's really, if, for example, if you change the brand or your logo in all your documents, you can do a search under all the documents and change a logo in every document you've got. You can change the terms in all the documents if you like. Say if you have a new CEO or there's a new term that you use and you want to change that on all the existing documents, you can do that as well. We find a lot of people just change their templates and then go from this moment onwards with the change, and that's where you click on the actual template and open up the particular template that you want to use. Now these are all the templates that are used in FastTrack. The most popular ones you'll use are the documents template, and you can just click on this and this checks this particular template out. You can change the template, and that's the one that's used every time you create a new document, a new Word document I should say, in FastTrack. Clicking on documents again, back to admin. We will use disposal, or the admin people certainly use disposals a lot more than a lot of the other functions on this particular process menu. And the first one that I find is used quite a lot is the obsolete. This can also be called closed in different other modules. It's also called closed, but in documents it's called obsolete. And basically it's documents that aren't being used anymore, that don't need to be shown in the record list. And it puts them in a separate library called the obsolete documents or obsolete library, whatever you like to call it. And it moves it away into that particular library and basically hides them away. They're still accessible if you do need to access them later on, but it gets them out of the way from the general use. As opposed to archiving, which is more of a leftover from when hard drives were quite small and quite expensive, and a lot of people used to archive a lot of their big databases and a lot of documents over to a separate server. We don't really use that much anymore because hard drives are so cheap these days, and everyone usually stays on the same drive all the time. But we do use obsolete, and that's what we'll go through now. Once again, we're checking what module are we in. We're on the knowledge module, we're in the document function, and we're in the policies library. And what we want to do is obsolete this POL 020. So it's pretty straightforward. We just click on that obsolete library, change this if it's not to obsolete, and click OK. Now this can take a little bit of time because what it's doing is searching all of FastTrack, checking what topics that it might be under, checking what indexes it might be under, and taking it out of all those particular parts of FastTrack and putting it away into the obsolete documents folder. So don't be too concerned if it does take a little bit of time, this one. Alright, doesn't normally take this much time. There must be guys using our network a bit, I'd say. Okay, done. Now to check that has been done, you can go into the obsolete documents and you'll go, okay, where's the obsolete documents? What we have is it's hidden away even in the obsolete documents library. And up here there's a little tick box that says current. That's highlighting all the documents that are current, and there's nothing current in the obsolete documents. So we untick that, and that shows us all the documents that have been obsoleted in that particular library. And the one we're looking for is POL 020. Creates a color here, and it hides it away, basically, is the way I describe it in that particular library. Now, if you do need to